Hashtag no offense uses strong language and is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Hashtag no offense.
You are now listening to the Inner Circle Podcast Network.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate.
Welcome back to the Hashtag No Offense Show. My name is Chris, and I'm coming at you solo style for what might be a confusing situation for some people, because fans of the show that follow our social media and that speak to me in the world know that we have stopped recording, and we announced the end of the show. So why is there a new episode in my feed? Well, that's a good question, and I have answers. So everybody that's close to me knows that I really, one, can't leave well enough alone, and two, hate loose ends. I hate when things are hanging. I need closure. I need finality. And I'm home alone right now with recording equipment because Dutch and the boys are out of town, and I'm sitting here alone with my thoughts in the studio, and I thought now is the perfect opportunity for me to speak my mind and to really just kind of give an insight to what happened with the show, because people have reached out. We have gotten messages. We have gotten phone calls. You know, what's going on? What's going on? Why would you stop? Why would you stop? And maybe I'm here to shed a little light on that for you today. And doing solo episodes is a hot topic in the inner circle right now. So I just want to put that check mark next to my name. I did that shit. So what happened? I mean, it's simple and complicated all at the same time, which is so weird to even say, because it's like, what are we even doing here? I'm my own boss. You know, it's not like I answer to anybody or anything like that. Why do you feel pressure to put out episodes? Why do you feel pressure to do this thing that you do for fun? Well, that's also an easy and a hard question. Let me roll it all the way back to the beginning of the Hashtag No Offense show and start from square one and really kind of give some insight as to this whole machine and the intricacies of how this works. So 4 long years ago, it was an entirely different show. It was an entirely different lineup even. It was myself, it was OG Carp, and it was Tampa 2 Rings. And the Hashtag No Offense show even started because OG Carp was into podcasting. He was on another show, and that went south. And he was kind of looking for another avenue and wanted to do it with 2 Rings and I. And I was adamantly against doing a podcast. I didn't want anything to do with anything creative because, again, longtime listeners of the show have probably heard me mention from time to time, when I was a young guy, I used to run a record label in Chicago. I was into the indie punk rock emo scene in the early mid 2000s. You know, when Alkaline Trio and Newfound Glory were all the rage, and that didn't end so well. And I was super invested into that, and those memories came flooding back. I'll never forget the day he was asking me. I was laying on my bed in my old house, texting with him and 2 Rings in a group text, and I was just like, pictured like laying on my stomach on the bed, kicking my feet like a 16-year-old girl, just talking to my friends. And then the topic of, we should do a podcast because this is so hilarious, and everybody needs to be exposed to what we're having right now. And I'm like, fuck you. No way. There's no need for me to be in the world anymore. I don't want that. And all those thoughts of the record label started kind of just rushing back. And I hate to use the term failure, but it didn't end in what I would deem success. I mean, and ultimately it ended in the Dutch and I moving to Florida. not to escape problems, but I mean, like, it definitely was perfect timing when the record label ended to just cut all those ties and go to a different place and start new where I didn't have to face anybody. And the last thing that I wanted to do was to open old wounds and scars and, you know, just expose myself to that again, because I was probably 15 years removed from that, and I wasn't interested in starting all that all over again. But he told me the story about how he was kicked off of his old podcast, and they kind of just, you know, wrote him out of the deal or whatever. And the friend in me was like, fuck that. Fuck those guys. We're going to do it. We're going to be better. We're going to do what they're doing, only better. And yeah, let's do this shit. I don't know anything about it, but here we are. We're going to do it. And we started, and it was clunky. And like every podcast that starts, I mean, you know, who knows what the hell they're doing? That's the beauty of this. You turn it on and you just start talking and you see what happens. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. And we figured it out along the way, but we also had a lot of what I'll just call creative differences, because once I got back into doing a creative project, I really wanted to take the reins of it. And maybe that's because I'm a control freak, and maybe that's just because if I'm doing something, I want to do it the best that I can. And I felt like we were spinning our wheels a lot, and there was always a power struggle, which ultimately ended in, you know, OG Carp leaving the show. And that is right around the I don't know, in the 40s when Dutch came on full time. And she joined the show, and we rebranded and we reloaded, and it was Dutch and Two Rings and I, and everything was good. Everything was really good for a long time. And we really caught our stride, and we started getting sponsors, and we started, really, mingling in the community and really getting out there and dipping our toes in just embracing everything. And it was really good until as we approached the milestone of 100 episodes, a couple years in, when Two Rings decided he just didn't want to do the show anymore. And, that's fine. I understand it. It's a time commitment. It's time away from your family. He was the one coming to our studio every week. It wasn't like we all shared that load, he was the one that had to leave every Friday night, leave his family, come out, go home after midnight, all the shit. I get it. I get it. I didn't think that, coming and hanging out with your friends for a couple hours was that big of a deal, but I understand. So Two Rings leaves the show, and then that puts Dutch and I in a position at that point. Do we stop or do we keep going, just the two of us? And we decided we were going to continue to go on with the show. And it at that point, around episode 100, like, our show changed into something more personal for my wife and I. And that, not that it was a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing. It was just different. But then that put her into a position where she had to take on a bigger load. And I don't know if she ever take on a bigger load. I don't know if she ever envisioned herself actually in that capacity, because when she would come and guest, even when the two OGs were here, the original lineup was kicking on the #NoOffense show, and she would guest, it was more like, I'm just going to come in, I'm going to get drunk, woo-hoo-hoo, talk about crazy shit, drop the mic, and fucking walk away for a month, and no one's going to, I don't need to do anything. Everyone's going to love me. I have no responsibility. And I think that was how she envisioned herself coming into, a permanent role. And when I leaned on her a little bit more, I think, well, for one, the show got a little bit more personal, because that's just us. It's my wife and I. So we're talking about our everyday lives. We're talking about, funny anecdotes with our children and things that happen to us, and, less of the way things used to be with, commentary on, social things and whatnot. Again, really good. I'm glad we had the last 75 episodes, and I got to do close to 2 years, just me and my wife, because it was a standing date every Friday to do this podcast and to have a conversation with my wife about things that might not necessarily come up when we're just sitting across from each other on the couch watching, television or whatever it is. We got to talk about some topics like, I don't know, she lost her mom during the show. So death is always a big topic on her mind. And we got to explore spirituality and things like that as I went deeper into the creature side of things, and have some just, like really great conversations that ultimately I hope help her deal with the loss of her mom. We got to talk about, she struggles with body weight image, and we got to talk to some people that are maybe into nutrition like Jason Alme, or working out like Ben Bowman, and just really, I don't know, address some personal problems or personal issues, things that are lingering there. And myself too. I mean, I was able to really work things out with her, and it was great. We got the most interaction that we've ever gotten. People would reach out to us for our perspectives on things in their life. And I always thought that was the strangest thing, but also the coolest thing, that you would want, you like us well enough that you would want to know what we thought about what you were going through. And that to me tells me that you really relate to what we're going through, because we hung it all out there. We really pull no punches. I say it and it sounds cliche, but who you hear on the mic from us is actually who, I won't speak for my wife, but I know it's true. It's who we are in the world. It's at least who I am in the world. I mean, and I promise you that. Maybe a little bit more amped up when I'm sitting here and I'm on the mic and I'm just feeling the vibe, but I promise you everything that was said on this show is how we feel, and it's true, at least at the time of recording, because that's the thing too. Things change. And that was really one of the biggest monkey wrenches too, is when COVID hit, because people's listening habits changed, people's commutes changed. Obviously, everyone was at home. Our listenership wasn't what it was. Our interaction wasn't what it was. And I get that too. I mean, people are working at home, and you've got the choice to listen to two people from Tampa that you don't know, or sit and binge shit on Netflix, or, whatever. I understand. I get it. Things change, and it didn't totally affect the desire to do the show. I mean, it does sting a little bit, because the time and effort that you put into a podcast, you kind of wonder, am I just yelling into the internet? Is anyone really getting this? Like, what are we doing this for? What are we sacrificing all of this for? And that's actually progressing this tale into, kind of current events, where doing the podcast got to be a point of contention with me and my wife, and it's not that she didn't enjoy doing it, and it's not that I didn't enjoy doing it, but, as things change in your personal life, our children are getting older, our job situations are ever evolving and changing. She got a new job that was a lot more demanding of her than her previous job, and she didn't really have the time not to plan an episode, because I mean, a lot of that fell onto me, but she would interact and say, we should talk about this, we should do this, we should do that. And she just, I mean, the thought, when she had free time to think, the thought of what to talk about on the podcast was the furthest from her mind. And I get that. I mean, I don't want this to sound like I'm bashing my wife, or that we stopped doing the show because of her, because the Dutch was great. She is great. She's my best friend for the last 21 years. That being said, when we recorded our last episode, the last one that we dropped on the feed, it was back in April, and I was sitting in this very chair that I'm sitting in talking to you right now, and I was editing the episode, and all of a sudden I heard a lot of commotion coming from inside my house. And I go out there, and my son was holding his mouth. The neighbors were here. There was an accident, and long story short, my son's tooth was broken half because he got hit in the face with a paver from my pool area. And, I ran out there to deal with that. It's a charged situation in and of itself, but then it's kind of like fingers get pointed. Well, where were you? What were you doing? Why are you in the studio? And again, I'm not trashing my wife. I'm just saying, I'm painting the picture of time being pulled away from my family. And Later on that week, we got calls from the school that, there was issues with my son at school, and it really was starting to hit me. I need to be here when I'm here. I need to be more available for my family. My oldest son is at what I think is a pivotal moment in his life. He's going to be 12 soon. It's a weird time in a young man's life. I can relate. I think back to where I was when I was 11, pushing 12. And I would want me to be there for him. So I made the choice then. I'm going to try to be at least present when I'm here. And doing the podcast, pretty much, you think about it, how much does it take to sit down and talk for an hour and a half to 2 hours a week? That's the front of it. That is the tip of the iceberg. And I mean, the beauty of this hobby is that you could do it as intense or as low maintenance as you want. And I chose to give it a little bit more of myself because, one, I wanted to put my best foot forward. And I always said that if you were giving me the investment to listen to me for, 2 hours potentially of your time, I want to make it worth it. I want you to enjoy your time. I want you to be entertained because that's what this is for. That's what this is for. When we set out to do this in the beginning, I said to myself, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about important shit because you could get that information anywhere. I want this to be fun. I want this to be stupid. I want people to tune in because they're like, oh my God, those guys are idiots. But I laugh so much on my way to work. And that evolved a little bit over time too, because I mean, when things started happening in the world and things started going to shit, so to speak, I mean, like you're almost obligated to talk about some of those things, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because that's one of the things that pushed me to grow personally is to like, I wouldn't have these conversations, and now I feel comfortable talking about things. And it's not that I've suddenly been enlightened or educated, about the ways of the world or anything, but so to speak, I have been. And that was one of the positives of doing this show is it woke me up to thinking about things outside the box, not, like just, I don't even know where I'm going with this right now. This is one of the hard parts about doing a solo podcast, but, running it right back to where I was going. I made the decision that I wanted to be more available for my family and be here. So, it was real easy to start missing weeks, and it was real easy to start, 1 week went into 2 weeks into 3 weeks. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall at that point. I didn't want to fight with my wife over recording. I didn't want it to be something that we resented, and it was starting to go that way. I just turned 40 years old. When I turn 60 years old, I want to look back at my time doing an internet radio show as a good thing. I want to look back fondly on these memories. I don't want to look back, and be like, that was the start of, all of our problems because I forced you to do this thing and it wasn't a good thing for you to do. And, I never wanted to be that way. I want to look back at our time doing the #NoOffense show as something to be remembered. And I want our children, when they are ready to hear all the crazy shit that their parents talked about, I want them to be able to listen to these episodes and not have it be something to where like, yeah, you guys spent so much time in the studio and so much time away from us doing this. We grew up and you didn't even realize it. And maybe I'm being over dramatic, but I mean, that's just how I was looking at things. And, we missed a few weeks, and it got to the point where, even during that time, and I don't want to gloss over this, I lost someone very close to me. I experienced the death of one of my very close friends and mentors in my day job. My former boss, Butch DiAgostino, passed away, and it hit me. I don't want to say harder than I thought it would because I mean, he was very close to me. And it makes sense that it would hit me in the way that it did, but it, like death does, it comes out of nowhere and you're not prepared for it. We had just spoke earlier that week about him coming up and swimming in our pool, and what he said to my wife on Facebook, is going to haunt me forever. He replied back to her, "Don't wait too long because I'm old, and I don't know how much time I have left." And then, here we are. And that was a hard thing for me to focus on anything other than that for a little while. And I have to seize the opportunity to honor a close friend's memory and taking the opportunity to follow in his footsteps, because I mean, this man gave me every opportunity that I've ever gotten in my professional career. And that's the truth. He was the first one to give me a shot when I wanted to get promoted into sales. He saw enough potential in me that he promoted me and pulled me off when I was a delivery driver. He promoted me and pulled me off the truck. I leave my job and moved to Chicago with my wife in 2013. And it's not anything new. It's not new information, but I didn't really want to go. I liked my job. I liked my situation. For the first time in my life, I liked everything, but it was important for my wife to go. And eventually I agreed. And he told me at the time that it was a bad decision and I shouldn't go. And I told him I had to do what I had to do for my family. And, shocker, I got to Chicago and very quickly was miserable. Didn't enjoy my time there whatsoever. That's not to say that I didn't accomplish some things while I was there, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But I will never forget a snowy January morning, getting a phone call from Butch saying, "Hey, we're creating a new position and it's called a team lead. And, it's basically management training and this and that. And I think that you would be great for it. And I want you to be my team lead if you will come back. You said you're unhappy. Here's a shot for you to come back." This was in January. I got the ball rolling with my wife. It took a little bit of convincing. If I remember correctly, and we just had our second child too. In January, Lucas was born. So we had an infant, and we're dealing with that change in our lives. And I'm telling my wife, "Hey, it's a good time to move back to Florida." Because I've got a job opportunity and Butch wants me back. And again, he saw enough potential in me and enough, I don't know, he gave me shots and believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and continually got the best out of me. And that's why it left such a hole in me when I found out that he wasn't here anymore, because now I'm preparing for potentially one of the biggest things in my life professionally. And this would be a classic example of when I reach out to him and when I call him for advice and when I ask him for help, and I can't do it. And I can't do that. I don't have that right now. But I mean, again, we're getting away from the point here. The point being is that I just need to be laser focused on my personal life right now. And that's the reason why. I'm not saying that is solely, again, nothing is solely to blame for us making the decision to end this podcast, but it did play into the timing of things, where I was already in this headspace where I was thinking that I need to be available for my family. I lost someone super close to me, and that made me soul search a little bit about, like what I'm doing here. And I mean, like, again, longtime listeners know that I spent the whole last year thinking that I was ready to die. Not ready to die, but that I was going to die, and how I dealt with that. And then getting past that when I turned 40, and then having death just hit you in the face again. I remember I climbed into a float tank like I do, and I meditated on it a little bit, and at that point in time, I really thought that the best thing for me to do is to focus more on things in I don't want to say the real world, but in our lives. And I came home and I told her, because Dutch was never one that wanted to pull the plug on the show. Never wanted to pull the plug on the show in the term that we're done. She wanted to leave it open-ended and say we could do an episode when we want to do an episode. If it's once a month, if it's every 2 months or whatever, we just drop in, say hello, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought that was half-assing it, and I thought that was phoning it in, and I thought that we had obligations to our sponsors, we had obligations to our brothers in the network, and it wasn't fair to the people around us that counted on us and support us, and it wasn't fair to each other. So that's when I decided. I told her, I came home and I said, look, I think we need to end the show. I think that it needs to be a clean break, And how do you feel about that? And she's basically like always, whatever you want to do. So that's when we decided that we were going to end the show, because I don't want to sound morbid about this, because it's not also the case, but losing my former boss and my former mentor at work also created an opportunity for me in my professional career to move into that position. So I'm actually potentially going to be able to take over for him, which I think is the best. I think is the best way to tribute to losing a friend, is to try to fill in, not fill in their shoes, but follow in their footsteps is the term that I'm looking for. My day job, I've been training to be a manager at my company for the last 5 years, and I have the opportunity to move into that position now that he is gone, and I need to give it my all. I can't have any distractions, and it's not even for sure that this is going to happen, but I'm leaving it all on the table, and I'm going to make sure that it happens. I'm going to will it into existence with my thoughts and my actions, and I just can't be distracted right now. And all these things, all these pieces put together is what ultimately ended up in deciding to stop the show. And it wasn't an easy decision. I as much as I got to the point where I resented doing the work on the show, I still love doing it. I love talking to our friends. I love talking to the interesting people that we got to meet along the way. I loved sitting and having drinks with my wife, even if, sometimes it resulted in tears or arguments or anything. I mean, I wouldn't trade any of it. I loved doing it. So the decision to end it did not come lightly by any means. But that being said, I thought that maybe it might be a good idea to come on here and just shed some light onto things. I mean, it's not like I wish I had a crazy story. I wish I had like my co-host walked out on me and fucking slashed my tires. Well, no, that wouldn't be cool because that's my wife and that's my truck. But it's just one of those things. And I know personally I'm not gone. I'm still a creature of the night. I've been on since we decided that we were going to stop. I've been guest on 3 shows. I mean, I'm still available. I'm still going to do this thing. For me personally, I can't run a show right now. I can't take on the extra responsibility of being a showrunner and producing a podcast every week. And I want it to sound like, it's some big thing. I'm not producing a network television show, but it's time. That's the biggest thing, is it's time. And time is one thing that is a commodity that I think that most people take for granted. And I don't want to be that anymore. I don't want to miss my kids growing up. I want to be there for my wife. And, that's another thing too. Since we've stopped, as cheesy as it sounds, I feel like the Dutch and I have fallen in love all over again. I feel like that we have spent more time communicating and just enjoying ourselves without the pressure of, hey, save it for the show. Oh man, this is great. Why don't we talk about this tomorrow? Let's not talk about this right now. Just being in the moment and just enjoying each other. And I just feel like our whole vibe in this house has shifted, and that tells me that everything is on the path that it should be on. If we pulled the plug on this and I was walking around here with regret every day and the vibe was just not where it is, I would be like, we did the wrong thing. I'm going to figure out how to get back into doing this. I'm going to make it right. But that's not the case. Like everything is good. If you're wondering what's going on with the Wutskis, everything is good. I promise. But I did want to take a moment to reflect on our time with the show very briefly. And I know this is probably a very self-serving episode, and people are listening to this groaning and going, "Oh, I can't believe that he felt the need to come back for one last time and to jerk himself off over, whatever." But people were asking, people were reaching out, and I thought maybe it might be nice to put a bow on our time with the #NoOffense show. Just to get a little closure, as I mentioned in the beginning at the top. But I wanted to talk very briefly about what this show has meant to me personally, and I think right at the top of the list is just my personal growth. If you listen to episode 1 and you listen to episode 171, I'm a different human. I'm a different human being. I've got different ways of thinking. I've got different patterns in my life. I've just, and I mean, a lot of that has to do with, the spiritual awakening that I'm on. And I know most people are rolling their eyes when they hear the word spiritual awakening, but I mean, it's true. And it's put me on a different trajectory right now as a human. And, I have the show to thank for that. I've got, the Simmons boys to thank a lot for that too, because they kind of kicked it off. But I mean, even beyond that day in New Jersey, I mean, like, it's just been, the last 2 years has just been crazy for me. And I owe that to this internet radio show, as crazy as that even sounds when I say the words. I owe a lot to the #NoOffense show for me growing as a human. And I tell you what, too, people that know me, my boy Nick Smiklis, the Geek Father, all those guys that have known me growing up can tell you just the change in me personally. I'd say, I don't want to say, well, I'm more outgoing now, but like, I'm easier to talk. I'm easier to communicate with, just because I did it for so many hours. There's so many hours of my voice being recorded on the internet and speaking to people and speaking to strangers. I mean, like, I have super anxiety about that. Like, some of the best guests that we had, like, Hey Dimmu comes to mind. Like, those guys, we talked to them for almost 3 hours. It was such a great time. And up until the time I pushed record, I had such anxiety about talking to them. I didn't know who they were. We only messaged on the internet, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And you get that feeling in your chest and everything. But this has forced me to push through that. And now I don't have that anxiety about talking to people anymore. I used to not talk to anybody, and now I'm talking to everybody. And that's a good thing, man. I think that is a good way to be. I really do. And I owe that to the show. And speaking of guests and friends and things like that, that is, to me, the biggest takeaway from my time recording this podcast. And it's, again, I don't want to sound corny or cliche or anything like that, but the relationships that we've made doing this show transcends anything. Like, I'm not recording a podcast anymore, and I still talk to my podcast friends, because they're not my podcast friends anymore. They're just my friends. And that's huge too. I was the biggest guy. OG Carp would tell you, if you asked him, I used to clown on him to no degree about his fake friends on the internet, because he was so embedded in these Xbox communities and would just play games with people and like would talk to these people online. And I'm like, fuck you. Why am I trying to play games with strangers and have conversations with strangers? Fuck you with your fake friends on the internet. And then 4 short years later, I'm flying to New Jersey multiple times and flying to New Hampshire to see my fake friends on the internet, and I've got, connections to people in Hollywood and in Arizona and everywhere, globally even. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot sometimes to think about, just how far we've come. And that means the world to me. It really does. I might not show it so much, but like, just the making the friends and the connections that I have within this community are everything to me. And I would like to just take a moment to recognize some of those people. Jody B of the Po Boys podcast, dude, I love you so much, man. You're the best. You're one of the best interviewers that I've ever come into contact with in my time doing this. You have a way of having natural conversations with people and pulling information out of them that I don't even think they wanted to share. You got a knack for this, dude. You got a radio gold voice. I mean, you definitely got a face for radio, so fucking keep it up, dude. I love it that we've made connection, and I hope that we keep in touch, dude, because you really are a good dude. Brooke and Randall from Married as Fuck. I mean, what can you say about Uncle Randy? I mean, he's got a gravity of his own these days. He's a quasi-internet celebrity, and nobody deserves it other than Uncle Randy. I mean, like, he's the best, and I'm glad that our paths have crossed. One day we're going to get up to Atlanta, dude, and we're going to have some beers together, and it's going to be great. When you're the governor, I told you I'm part of your cabinet, bro. I'm there for you. You just say the word. John Buchanan, the Podfather. Whether you know it or not, John Buchanan, you have helped me become a better podcaster, because you do this for a living. You do this for your day job. And when we became close enough that we would communicate on a personal level, and you would tell me things about my sound quality, you would tell me things about my content, my show, in a complimentary manner, knowing, that you edit podcasts for, I guess celebrities would be the right term. You edit major podcasts and you make your money off podcasting. To give me a compliment that my sound quality is on par with things that you put your stamp on meant the world to me, dude. And I love having you in my group of friends. If anything does go wrong with one of my recordings or whatever, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I can reach out to John Buchanan and he will help me make it right. I want to give a shout out to Delvin Cox. Delvin's one of the most prolific podcasters in our indie group, and for good reason. He's got a fantastic show. Everybody loves him. One of the most genuine, nice guys that I've ever had the privilege of coming into contact with. He only made the show one time, which I mean, we did a Comedy is Dead together. We've done some other things. I've been on his show, but it's surprising that in 4 years we've only had you one time, Delvin, and that's my bad. But it's one of those things where I know that I can just make a phone call and get you immediately, and it's one of those things that I always took for granted, and I think I'm going to regret not having you on more, DC. But everybody go check out Delvin Cox, aka Pimp Juice, right now. Jason Lampro. Jason has many shows that he doesn't record on a regular basis, because I think he's kind of in a similar situation as I am with time restraints and family commitments and things like that. But Jason Lampro has a podcast called The Mixed Media Forest. He's got like a handful of other shows that he does as passion projects. And, he's one of the nicest, most supportive guys that you'll ever meet. And we have some great DM conversations because Jason's going through like some spiritual awakening things to his own credit right now, and we bounce things off each other, and I can feel his excitement sometimes when he comes to me talking about meditation and things like that, and then I drop something on him, and it almost feels like he's like, oh shit, now I got to go back to the drawing table and figure this one out because he said blah 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 blue, and we just have great back and forths like that, and I hope that continues even though I'm not recording anymore, Jason, because I think you're a great dude, and I think you're on a great path. Ben Bowman, the Angry Dad, man. If you're not listening to The Angry Dad, I don't know what you need to get your life together, because Ben does a lot of episodes. He does 3-4 episodes a week sometimes, and they're short. So you save them all up for one day. I typically choose to save them all up for Friday, and then I run them all in a row. And Ben will motivate the shit out of you. He will motivate you to get up and do whatever it is you want to do. And some of the time when I'm listening to him, I feel like he's talking directly at me. And it's what I need. And I think it's what a lot of us need, is just for somebody to be that friend, that brutally honest friend, to be like, yo, what are you complaining about? You're not even doing it. You're not even doing what you want to do. Get the fuck up and do it right. And I love Ben. He was the first show that I did after we announced that we weren't recording anymore, and I got onto the call with him, and he was like, dude, what the fuck? I just saw your Instagram. Ben's a really good guy, and I'm glad that our paths have crossed as well, because you are a fucking creature, dude, and I vibe with my tribe, and you are definitely one of my tribe, brother. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. Oh, yeah, that Inner Circle Podcast Network, that group of guys that have become brothers to me. How could I ever forget the Inner Circle Podcast Network? When we formed our group, I don't know what it was about us, but I feel like we were one of the most polarizing groups in this community. For whatever reason, you either loved us or you hated us. And I mean, I don't think that's really changed so much, but I couldn't have asked for a better group of guys to become essentially a fraternity with. And I right off the top, I want to mention my boy Joe B. Joe B was one of the first people that I came into contact with when I started recording to begin with. When we were in the early episodes of #NoOffense Show, and I was communicating with Joe on Facebook through the podcast groups. And he was actually the first one that I got on a plane for. Like I flew to Boston because, Joe was having an event for his podcast. And I mean, like, it didn't actually pan out that way, but that event that I flew to Boston for put me into direct contact with Jason Alme. And that was one of the universe's happy accidents, I think, because Jason's become a brother to me. Jason is one of my closest friends in the world. Like we speak on a regular basis, and it's not just because I could potentially be the father of his daughter. It's because he's a great guy. And again, we vibe, man. He's just my brother, man. And, that trip that I was going to see Joe couldn't come to get me, and he sent Jason in his stead, and Jason took me on a great trip through Chinatown that I'll never remember, and I'll never forget, rather. New Jersey's the one I'll never remember. Shout out to the Simmons boys. I guess we'll just roll right through this because, like, again, I don't want this to sound too self-serving and too jerky offy, but I mean, you know what? I'm a sap, I'm a softy, and that's, I'm thanking my friends. I'm appreciating the creative people around us. And, Adam Simmons is one of those people. Adam Simmons he is truly one of my best friends. We speak on a very regular basis. And when I was recording, it was very rarely about podcasting. It was usually him going through something and needing to talk, me going through something and needing to talk. He's put me on the path that I am as a human right now. He's got me, being mindful of my thoughts. He's got me meditating in float tanks. He gave me a space cookie in New Jersey that rattled something loose in my stupid brain that is just transformed who I am as a human. And I owe everything to Adam Simmons. I really do. And, I'm really fortunate to have you in my life, you and Bobby and Bobby Light and everybody around you. I can't express enough gratitude that I have for all of you. The Homie Casual. What can you say about the Homie Casual? The Homie Casual and I have become very close over time. Like when we joined Inner Circle together, I don't think that we had much communication, like, a few DMs here and there, cause we were on the other network together, but like we didn't talk the way we do now, where I get a call and it says Kaz on my screen and I smile because I know I'm in for at least an hour and a half of stories. And you guys that listen to the Hood Diner, you get to hear these stories on the episodes when they drop. Kaz calls me after he records and I get like the director's cut, behind the scenes, director's commentary episode of the Hood Diner on the phone in my backyard. And I grab a cigar and I go sit outside on my Adirondack chairs and I just smile while I listen to him tell me about the stupid shit that DJ Century did or said, or what they ate, or who pissed him off. And we've developed a friendship just by being sounding boards for each other. And that's in essence what the Inner Circle was to begin with when we started. I mean, it was to push each other because Adam had that rising tides raises all ships mentality and iron sharpens iron, or whatever the phrase is. But, we push each other to be better. And when we fall, we lift each other up. And that's the beauty of this. And that's what Kaz and I's relationship has become. And I have so much respect for Kaz just because of his hustle and his personal life. He works for himself. He's got his hands in I don't know how many different business ventures. He's the pop baron of Tucson now, slinging those. He added another feather in his cap. I mean, like he's a hustler, and I've got the most respect for him. Which brings me to Mikey Trudell, another fucking hustler that's chasing his dream. And anyone that knows what they want to do, I'm jealous of, because I've never known from an early age what I wanted to do with my life. And Mikey knew that he wanted to work in movies and work into Hollywood, so he fucking moved to Hollywood and he worked in movies. And I admire that. That's admirable. And he recently got the to this date, one of the biggest jobs that he's ever gotten, and was the prop master on the new season of American Horror Story that's dropping in a couple weeks. And I mean, like, that's big time shit. He's doing big things, and I'm super happy for him. And, I wish that dude all the best because he deserves it. And like I said, I admire anyone that's willing to sacrifice to follow your dreams. My boy Riley keeps me young. Riley keeps me young, and I love him for it, man. he asks me to come onto his show, even though there's 37 of them, and I'm just going to sit there and laugh at him. And he asked me a couple of questions about being old, but I don't mind. I'm like their token old guy. Riley and I, we didn't have a lot of correspondence with each other before we became Inner Circle together, even though he was on the other network too. But that first trip in New Jersey, that Space Cookie trip, Riley was there, and we got a chance to connect, and he was there when everything went down, and he walked and he tried to get me an energy drink to snap me out of it. I think maybe he just watched Pulp Fiction, and he saw when they stabbed the needle in the chest and got her heart going again. I think that was the mentality. He was trying to like jolt me back to reality. I appreciate the effort, kid, but like there were fucking forces at work way beyond you or I, but I do appreciate the effort, and I do appreciate you, man. I do listen to The Plunge on a weekly basis. I am going to be appearing on The Plunge more frequently now that I'm what you call a free agent, I guess. And I couldn't be more excited about it. Like I said, you guys keep me young. I'm a fucking Post Malone fan now. 2 years ago, you were playing Post Malone tracks for me, trying to get me to see if I could guess who they were. Shout out to the Chinese Thanksgiving. But yeah, I mean, that's just personal growth. Again, that's growth as a human. I'm a Post Malone fan, and I'm here to tell the world. Last but not least, in the Inner Circle, my boy, my work wife, DJ of the Untrained Eye. DJ has become somewhat of a fast friend for me, even though we've been communicating for years. Recently, over the last few months, I mean, like, we talk on a regular basis. And when I say regular basis, I mean for many hours every day. Like, we spend our work days just shooting the shit, just talking about podcasting, talking about what we watched on TV, talking about fucking shit from our past. I mean, like, some days we go deep, some days we just talk about Loki. I mean, like, it just kind of depends how it is, but DJ has become a really good friend to me, and the cool thing about that is, again, podcasting brought that to me because DJ lives 20 minutes from me, and I never would have met him if it wasn't for talking and saying my stupid voice into the internet. So I'm very fortunate to have crossed paths with DJ, because now I have an in-town friend. I have one more in-town friend. And you know what? And I am such an asshole because I'm forgetting. I'm talking about the hosts of these shows, and I'm forgetting about all the other people on these shows. Beth, you're amazing as well. I love the way you keep DJ in line every week. Century, dude, we haven't talked a lot, but I'm an OG Phoenix Suns fan, just like you are, man. And I think that if we had the chance to do some drugs together and maybe go to a rave, I think that we would have a good time. Who am I forgetting? Hunter. Fucking, I love you, Hunter, dude. Even though you smell weird and you're kind of a creep, but I love you, Hunter. I love everybody. I love Bobby Moore, dude. Fucking Bobby Moore is one of the most genuine people that I've ever met in my life. That dude. There's not enough time for me to ramble on by myself about Bobby Moore. And it's funny that I mentioned that because I'm looking at the track going, holy shit, how have I talked for this long by myself? Because I'm the advocate of solo podcasting is fucking hard. And maybe I've rambled for, 45 minutes right now, or maybe I have really gotten something that people are going to be glad to listen to out on the table. I don't know which, but you know what? It's going to get posted either way, so fuck it. Before I get out of here, I really do want to give special shout outs to the OG hosts of the #NoOffense show. OG Carp, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, dude. We've had our differences, but I really do. I can honestly say I miss doing this show with you. I listen to some of the older episodes sometimes, and I listen to us fighting and having good conversation on this show. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but it was probably making the show better. And Two Rings, I fucking love you. I love you and I hate you at the same time, because I hate you for fucking leaving, but I love you for opening the door for me to connect with my wife on a different level and really evolve this podcast into more of a personal diary or a time capsule of our lives. And you gave that to us, indirectly or directly, however you want to look at it, but you gave that to us. And I mean, look at how your life has changed, cocksucker. You wouldn't even be Two Rings if it wasn't for the fucking podcast. And now you're goddamn Two Rings. So go paint a shoe, motherfucker. I have to say thank you to the Duchess, because without the Duchess on mic and off mic supporting me, I wouldn't have done this for 4 years. Dutch was there from day one saying, you should do this. Before she was on the show, she would make snacks and lay out spreads for the guys when they were coming over and fucking just like make the vibe and the environment so welcoming and like just ready to get on the mic and record. And she would step up at a moment's notice when we needed her to fill in. Which she didn't even think twice about joining the show when I said, hey, but we lost OG Carp. You ready to step up? She was like, fuck yeah, I'm here. I'm the Duchess. I'm farting in faces. I'm sucking dick. I'm eating sandwiches. I'm fucking doing the whole thing. And, she embraced that character. She embraced the role. I mean, she's the best. She's the best. I wouldn't have spent the last 2 decades with a person if they sucked. And she's the fucking best. She stood by me through everything, and it was a great opportunity to just stop recording the show at episode 100 when 2 rings left. And she was like, fuck no, we're about to do this shit now. We're just getting started. We're just getting fucking started. And we squeezed out another 2 years of episodes. And we, like I said, it's helped us both. It's helped us as a couple. We've been able to work through shit. The connections that we've made with each other, like the reconnections, just, it's meant everything to me. And she means everything to me. And I have to say thank you. I just have to say thank you for riding with me always, and thank you for accompanying me on this journey of the #NoOffense show. I love you so much. That's it. I hope that I didn't just ramble for an hour. I hope that encompasses everything that people wanted to know about why we stopped. And again, let me just reiterate, like, I'm not done. I'm personally not done. There might even become a time when things shake out where Dutch is like, let's do something else. Let's come up with something else. Let's do another show. We're around. You know how to get us. I am at The Real Wutsky on every social media platform. Whatever one you like, if you just punch in those letters, you'll find my stupid face and you can hit my DMs. I'm open. I actually invite it. And I'm still around too. I'm a creature. Whether we've recorded an episode in the last 2 months or not, that's irrelevant. I'm always going to be a creature. I'm waiting for the opportunity where I can put a tiger on my fucking body. And, I need to get that tiger tattoo sooner rather than later, because I'm a creature. It's not just a show. It's a fucking way of life. And I'm a goddamn creature for life. And I am moonlighting on a lot of different podcasts. Like I said, I have been on The Angry Dad. I have been on The Plunge. Most recently I was on Shit Happens When You Party Naked with Jason, fighting like an old married couple with my baby boo. And I'm around. I'm a fucking around. So if you really want to reach out to us, you know how to get a hold of either of us. And I hope that you've enjoyed your time listening to the #NoOffense show, because at the end of the day, all I really wanted to do was make people laugh. All I really wanted to do was just have a good time. And as fate would have it, we weren't here for a long time, but goddamn it, we were here for a good time. So signing off the #NoOffense show for the final time, I am The Real Wutsky for the Duchess. We love you. See you on the other side.